What's up, everybody? Jackson Fuller here, along with Tanner Barth, and it's week 6. It's the second to last week of the high school football regular season. Somehow it's been a long wait for us to get here, but I think we can start talking playoffs and get a little bit excited about some late season storylines. Tanner, how you doing today? What was kind of your biggest takeaway from week 5 of the high school football regular season here in southeastern North Carolina?
I think one of the big questions we had, Jackson, is what was the matchup with Topsail and West Brunswick going to look like? And ultimately, the West offense showed up, and a career day for Monzel Campbell, rushes for 5 touchdowns, really proved to be the difference there. And, West kind of showed that they are still at the hierarchy in Class 3A, at least for this area. And so that was one thing that really stuck out to me. And I'm excited like you are. We get 1 week closer, and these games start meaning so much more. A loss can end your season, a loss can put you, or a win can put you in the playoffs. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, especially. And we'll get to Topsail Hoggard. That's the big one, obviously. But like you said, the losses and wins are going to mean a lot, not only for conference standing, but just for playoff seeding, for wild card. I mean, we really, we've gotten a little bit of a taste of the NCHSA seeding process this year through basketball and the other playoffs. But football is going to be kind of a different breed, I think, and there's going to be some unhappy teams across North Carolina getting left out. But before we get into our preview, just want to shout out New Hanover boys soccer. Tanner and I were both there in Cary on Saturday night. A true heartbreaking loss for the Wildcats. So close. I mean, I honestly think 7 times out of 10, New Hanover wins that game. They were the more impressive team for most of the game, but that's kind of soccer. Weddington took their chances. New Hanover wasn't able to, and the Warriors are the state champs. So I just like to give a shout out to the New Hanover boys soccer team. It's been, I think Tanner, you share this sentiment. It was a kind of a pleasure and a joy covering such a talented team in this weird and crazy COVID year.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned it. I think if they're able to play full strength in the second half, I think they have a pretty good chance to win that match. But, you can't look back on things now. The past is in the past. But they were a really talented team from top to bottom, and I have no doubt, that's going to be a team we're probably maybe looking in the postseason come the fall, because what's weird is, they're about 4 or 5 months away now from starting high school soccer season again. I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get back to a more normal schedule. But yeah, great season for them, and nothing to hang their head about, no doubt.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think 9 of their 11 starters were juniors. They will move up to the 4A classification next year, but I still expect great things from the New Hanover soccer team in 4 or 5 months. It's going to be the same thing for football when that season wraps up. So, all right, but let's get into this week. We're going to start off like we always do. We're going to set the lines, pretend we're the Las Vegas bookies for the Mideastern Conference football action here in town, and only 3 games this week. I'm sure you guys didn't miss it, but the New Hanover football team suspended its season for at least 2 weeks, I think on last Thursday, and so no game for the Wildcats over the next 2 weeks. Coach Dimmick has said he would try to probably get a game in the last week of the regular season, but he was, not very confident. That just would require a lot of help from other schools. So only 3 games this week. West Brunswick, as of right now, we're recording this on Monday, is off this week because they were supposed to play New Hanover. I know Coach Hickman was trying to find a game, but that's pretty tough this late in the season. So let's get it started. Topsail at Hoggard. This game lost a little bit of luster after last week, West Brunswick beating Topsail. We kind of expected this was going to be a battle for the MEC Conference Championship, and a lot's still at stake. Topsail can try and clinch Topsail can still share the MEC title. But both teams are not undefeated anymore. The Pirates are 4-1. The Vikings are 5-0. Tanner, I'm going to set the line and then kind of let you dictate where the conversation for this game goes. My line is going to be Hoggard -9.5. I think their offense will be able to score on Topsail, and I like their defense's chances of limiting Topsail, just like West Brunswick did last week. What do you think, Tanner?
Yeah, I was going to go 12.5 Hoggard as the favorite there on their home field. I think, this Hoggard team's shown what they can do both offensively and defensively. They started off a little slow offensively against North Brunswick. I was at that game Friday, but the defense was so good it didn't matter. They set them up with great field position time after time, and they were able to punch it in short yardage situations. And I think that's where Topsail will struggle in this game, is maybe up front, a little bit trouble controlling the line of scrimmage and their offensive attack, because we know they can score points. And I think that's where I'll give Hoggard the upper hand. I'll go, in that range, 10-14 with Topsail as the favorites there, Hoggard as the favorites there on their home field.
Yeah, and remember, Topsail won this game last year. Hoggard was, mightily struggling on offense. I think last season, Hoggard's offensive line has been one of the more impressive units this year. And while they don't maybe necessarily have a dynamic, playmaker like Monzel Campbell, I think like you said, the line of scrimmage will probably be the difference in this game. If Topsail has a chance to pull off an upset, they're going to have to really play well up front. But yeah, I think Sam Williams, Paul Rowland, the quarterbacks, they have an opportunity to have huge nights here for the Hoggard offense against. To the Topsail defense has struggled this year, and the offense has kind of covered up those cracks through the first 4 weeks. Last week against West Brunswick, they weren't able to do so. But hey, for Coach Inman, and he wasn't at the West Brunswick game. He returns this week, I think, and if second straight year with a win over Hoggard, you would erase a lot of the sting from losing to West Brunswick at home the previous week. So a lot to play for here. I think if Hoggard wins, they clinch at least a share of the conference title, and in all likelihood, they'll be the outright MEC champions with a win this week.
Yeah, you mentioned it a little bit. Since giving up, those 19 or scoring only 19 points in their first game, since then Hoggard has went 49, 27, and back-to-back 42-point performances. So this team definitely showing that they kind of maybe have that offense this year to go along with a pretty stout defense.
And the defense scores too. I mean, Jackson last week at the fumble return for a touchdown. Bryce, I cannot pronounce his last name. Eichelberger, I think, is how. Yep. Come on, you're the TV guy. How do you pronounce it?
That's Bryce Eichelberger. That's right. Yeah.
All right, I got it. He had a defensive touchdown, and so hey, when the offense is scoring 28, 35 points a game, and the defense is pitching in 2 touchdowns, that's a really tough formula to beat. Let's move on to South Brunswick at Ashley. The Cougars 2-2, an impressive victory over Laney last week, 3-0. Defensive slugfest. Noah Harrell with a game-winning field goal. Second time in about 5 years, South Brunswick's won, I think, a 3-0 game against a Wilmington school. I think they did the same thing against Ashley not too long ago.
Right. Yeah.
So the Cougars now at Ashley this week. Last year they played each other twice in their regular season. South Brunswick won both those games. I think this is going to be a close game. Ashley's been getting better all season. They were off last week because of the New Hanover COVID issue, so they've had extra time to prepare. South Brunswick's the favorite. They're 2-2. They're, beating Laney. They've got a couple good wins over Laney and North Brunswick. And I'm going to keep that line pretty small. I'm going to say South Brunswick by 4.5 to start. What do you think, Tanner?
Well, I thought it was interesting, Jackson, because I think last week, obviously my memory is not as good as it used to be. I'm only 27 and can't remember, but I'm pretty sure you took South Brunswick 3.5 last week, and I took Laney 3. And so, it's kind of curious that it swing on either side. Neither of us were too far off. We didn't think it would be 3 total points, but pretty interesting game. And with your 4.5, I'll go South Brunswick 6.5 point favorite. I think, I do think it's going to be a really close game. South has struggled to move the football and score points at times, but their defense is, one of the top 3 or 4 maybe in the Mideastern Conference. So I think it'll be a close game. And don't be surprised if the Ashley Screaming Eagles don't put their, put a stamp and get into the win column, but I'll take South Brunswick at 6.5.
Ashley's, I think they've been getting better every week. I mean, the last game they played, they were leading Topsail at halftime. Their defense has been pretty good this year. The offense has had its moments. It's also struggled at times. But, Jack's what's that? What's the running back's name over there? I'm having an absolute a blank right now. But I know Barrett Swales has been playing quarterback. He's been playing pretty well over there. So I think Ashley, they've got a chance. And if they, coming into the season, they wanted to try and, get a conference win, they've got a couple opportunities to close the season with South Brunswick and Laney coming up with, but we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting to see how close that game is. Can the South Brunswick offense score? I do think they'll have to score more than 3 points to win this week. So let's move on. Laney at North Brunswick. The Scorpions are 1-3 coming off of a loss to Hoggard last week. Like you said, the North Brunswick defense pretty good. Hoggard struggled early in that game to score. They got 2 defensive touchdowns late, and RJ Green had a great game. I think the final was 42-14 or something like that, but it was a lot closer than the final score.
It was 21-7 going into the third quarter, so it was somewhat of a close game at that point.
It was there for the taking. And then Laney, 0-5. The Buccaneers they've struggled so mightily this season. I think the biggest surprise for them is Luke Little's an offensive guy, and the offense just hasn't clicked yet, which, is a surprise coming into the season. But, I think if you take a step back and realize COVID year, no 7-on-7s, a weird, preseason, it makes sense that maybe their offense doing a whole new system has struggled a little bit. I still think they would be a little disappointed with how they're playing so far this year. I think this game's going to be close too, man. I think we got, 3 pretty good matchups this week. I'm going to go North Brunswick -5.5. Just, got to kind of give them the favored, make them the favorite because their defense has played pretty well and they've shown they can score. Laney has not been able to show that they can score in the past few weeks. So I'm going to say 5.5. What do you think, Tanner?
I'm going to go with a very similar prediction as we had for Laney and South Brunswick last week. I'll go 3.5, but instead of, I will lean the way of North Brunswick this time. I think, they do have that ability. They've got some really talented offensive kids, but, they're smaller. Their numbers aren't as quite as big as some of these, Wilmington schools, and that's tend to hurt them at times. I'd say a flip-flop game in this sort of thing. I give them the 3.5 being at home, but I could see it going either way. And like you said, this is one of those weeks where we kind of feel like we've got some good matchups on the table and, a couple of games that could go either way. I think the largest favorite, obviously, both of us have is Hoggard, but that one could go either way as well. So, and key games because, some of these teams that are hanging on like Ashley and, Laney who haven't picked up a win yet, obviously you lost and they're out. But on the other side, the teams they're playing, with a win could maybe give them a shot to still, have an inkling of a chance in, the 3A side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think no result this week is really going to stun me. I mean, you could make an argument for any team of these 6, any of the 3 games going either way. And I could say, okay, that makes sense to me. I think it's going to be really interesting to wake up on Friday morning. The games are all on Thursday this week. It'll be interesting to wake up Friday morning and see how the results kind of went and, who was able to win some of these close matchups. All right, let's move on. We always do one bold prediction and one big question to close out our show. We start with a big question. Tanner, I'll go first. And, we've kind of touched on this already a lot, but writing up the script, this was the only thing I could, can either of the winless teams get a win this week? I think for Laney and Ashley, they coming into the season, they would have hoped that they could beat North Brunswick and South Brunswick respectively. And, that's no shot to the 2 Brunswick schools. That's just, Laney and Ashley know they're probably going to lose to Hoggard and New Hanover. They want to try and get some wins elsewhere. They think they can beat North and South Brunswick. This is that week for them. Can either of them get their first win before they meet up to close out the regular season? So that's my big question. Our lines say that neither of us kind of think that we both think those 2 Brunswick schools will come away with the win, but we set those pretty close. So, like we've talked about, going to be some close games. What's your big question for the week, Tanner?
I think my big question is, will this Hoggard team continue to look, as impressive as they have? They've yet to, ever since that New Hanover game, they've yet to have a letdown. They've really came out and put everyone away, or at least created some separation between themselves, have yet to play in a super close game since that Hanover one. They win 42-6. They win 27-0. They, over impressive West Brunswick win and then come out and, win 42-14. Will they continue to put their foot on the gas pedal and, not show some of those weaknesses that teams tend to do at times because, we're having a hard time finding those for Hoggard right now. And, they just looked really as impressive as they could ever since, squeezing out that tight rivalry win over the New Hanover Wildcats.
It's really crazy to kind of think about. You go back to week 1, how that game against Hanover could have, the teams just go in different directions. I mean, if New Hanover finds a way to win that game, obviously they're shut down with COVID right now, but maybe they're the undefeated team. That's the MEC favorite. And Hoggard's kind of, got 2 losses and struggling. And then, you look at I think the Hoggard West, I'm glad you brought up the Hoggard win over West Brunswick because I think we're going to look back at the end of the season and, at the time we didn't realize how impressive of a result that was. Not only scoring 27 points on a good West Brunswick offense, but holding Monzel Campbell, JJ Cobb, and those guys to 0 points. Then they just put up 45 against Topsail. So I think we're going to look back at that result and say, wow, that was really impressive from the Vikings. We should have known them. But, and we probably did know, but we should have been really easy to kind of figure that they're the class of the conference this year. One bold prediction. I think we've done a pretty good job on these. I don't think either of us got our bold prediction.
I don't even remember what it was.
I'm pretty sure you said Topsail West Brunswick was going to be a 1-possession game in the 4th quarter, and I had the Hoggard defense pitching another shutout. So we went 0 for 2 last week, I'm pretty sure. My bold prediction this week, I think, and this is really bold. I don't even have very much faith in this, but I'm throwing it right now. Hoggard will have 200-yard rushers this week. Just seeing the way that West Brunswick was able to run the football on Topsail, I think, the Vikings have such good depth in the backfield. My only concern is maybe too many guys touch the football. But I think between, Sam Williams, Paul Rowland, even Sam Jones at quarterback, They have a lot of guys that are capable of busting out big runs. I think Hoggart maybe has 2 100-yard rushers this week. Tanner, what's your bold prediction?
I know this is going to completely and totally contradict what I said for my spread, but I'm going to have one of the winless teams getting a win.
Okay.
That's my bold prediction, even though my spreads are, I guess you can go, against the spread. I'm going against my own spread personally, but I'll go out on a leap here and say that, one of those teams will get their first win. I know that was kind of your big question, so I'll give you a bold answer to your question. I think one of them will get the win. That's just my bold prediction.
I like it. And you said this in the first 2 weeks. I haven't really mentioned it, but these spreads are not necessarily predictions. Of course, they basically are, but we're also thinking, how would people kind of view these games? I know people might not believe this, but I told Tanner in private last week that if you made me pick West Brunswick Topsail, even though I made Topsail the favorite, I was going to pick West Brunswick just because I thought their defense matched up pretty well and they'd be able to run the football. So these aren't predictions, but you just gave us a 50% prediction. One of those winless teams is gonna find a win this week. I like it. I think it would be, for both of those programs, Laney and Ashley, they desperately need a win to kind of get themselves rolling into the fall football season. That's right around the corner, as we said earlier in this video. Tanner, give us your plugs. What do you want people to check out this week on WWAY?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different, as you mentioned, Jackson. Some of our smaller schools are going to be playing on Friday, so we'll kind of have a pseudo fifth quarter, I guess, for you Thursday night, which will probably be most, of our Wilmington schools and Brunswick County schools. So we'll have that. Make sure you tune in, check out all the high school football action. And then, the fifth quarter at 11 on WWAY News. You can check us out on WWAY News on Twitter, as well as me at Tanner_Barth. And I'm glad we're about there, Jackson. Keep grinding away, and hopefully we can find a couple of our teams to make a deep run and continue covering good, high-quality high school football.
And our favorites, I know both of our one of our favorite seasons of baseball season is right.
Oh yeah,
which is going to be awesome as well. So I'm nervous about that overlap between football and baseball season. We've gotten past now the football, boys soccer, cross, and girls soccer. Overlap right now. There's another one coming right up for us. And as always, from you guys at StarNewsVarsity on Facebook and Twitter, got a good preview story coming out this week on the Hoggard 2 quarterback situation. Sam Jones and Gabe Johnson handling it well and playing very well for the Vikings, who are the league leaders right now. So be sure to check that one out. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Everybody have a happy Easter weekend, and we'll catch you next week for the regular season finale. And the playoffs are right around the corner. Thank you, Tanner, again for joining me, and talk to you guys soon. If I can.